hearty welcome to all of you in the room and those of you who are dialing in from India, Middle East, and any other country which is awake right now. Oh, sorry. So I'm just going to repeat. I'm going to extend a hearty welcome to everybody in the room and those of you who are dialing in from different parts of Asia and Middle East and any other country which is awake right now. And welcome to Debbie. I
Thank you.
think I've heard a lot about you, and having spent a large chunk of my career in UK, I've always looked up to role models like you. So thank you for what you've done. I think. I don't know whether you're aware, but there are a lot more women out there, whether it's UK or outside UK, who draw a lot of inspiration from you.
Well, thank you. And I'm honored to be here. I hope I don't disappoint any of you because it's a huge privilege to be here with so many other high achieving women. So thank you for the invite.
So, as I kind of have transcended my career, very often leadership is identified with vision, direction, and support. And in some way, you've been personifying that. But I think what would be good for us to know how that journey has been for you and what have been some challenges as you graduated and started your career.
Well, so I'd start from I never thought that I'd have the opportunity to get into such a privileged role. And it's a genuine honor to become the chief executive of Nationwide. We'll talk more about Nationwide later, but I'd just start by saying that I went to school in my hometown in Glasgow. I, did reasonably well at school. I went to university in Glasgow, and financial services was a huge interesting area to me because what I learned very early on was that money makes the world go round, right? Money talks, and financial services had great power and great influence in the way that society operated in the UK. And I sort of recognized that it was an area where um, there was going to be huge change, and huge change was already beginning to happen as I studied at university and left, because what was coming together was technology was beginning to drive financial services. And this is so interesting, I think, particularly being part of a conversation with IBM, because one of the most important things to me was to think about what were the skills and what were the attributes that would set me apart. And it became very clear to me very early on that technology was going to transform and change the world as it subsequently did. And it was fascinating to me that um, so many women didn't seem interested in technology when I was younger. Now, one of the things that's amazing about India is you have managed to encourage so many women to study STEM um, subjects. And certainly in Glasgow and in Scotland, it just wasn't such a big deal. So it was just really interesting to me to think carefully about education and what was going to set me apart.
That's fabulous. As you were talking about tech, in India, we actually do have 40% of the
Yeah.
STEM graduates as women, which is fabulous. But one of the challenges which we continue to face, not just in India, actually, in my experience globally, is at the mid level,
Yeah.
and the leaky pipeline at the
Yeah.
mid level. And, as professionals, we work through it through our career, but somewhere those challenges keep
Yeah.
surfacing. What would be your message to women as they transcend their journey and they reach the crossroads of marriage, maternity,
Yep.
mobility, where they're conflicted with multiple choices?
So, look, I think this is a really interesting topic, and what I'd say to everyone is the answer for you as individuals is a very personal set of choices. And one of the things, I mean, I can share my journey and what's important to me, but the first thing I'd say to everybody is you have to make a set of decisions that work for you, what is important to you, and the choices that work for you and your family. I was really lucky in that my husband was probably more ambitious about what I and women could achieve than necessarily I was, and he was very, very supportive. So the first thing I would say is make decisions that work for you, but surround yourself with people who will support you in the journey that works for you, and think very carefully about those choices, because to enable you to achieve what's right, you have to have people around you that will support, challenge you, and help you. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I would say is that normally I find that the biggest inhibitor to your own success is what you think you can achieve yourself. And I can think of a number of occasions where I was maybe thinking, oh, I've done X, Y, I've done this, so that's good. And my husband would say to me, well, why not push yourself forward for the next promotion? Why wouldn't you be the person that should be considered? So I got a lot of strength and a lot of confidence from his support. I talked about education. My personal view is that self-development and education are so critical. Even now, I spend a lot of time thinking about what should I be learning, how should I be pushing myself, how can I develop myself further, how can I learn from other people that I meet, who do I look up to. And I think constantly pushing yourself to make sure that you're developing constantly. But I think for women, there are certain times in your life which become a really important set of choices. I have a daughter, she's 20 years old, and I was really lucky that I became quite senior young before I had my daughter. And that allowed me to make choices that I don't think a lot of women have the opportunity to make. So I happened to become a member of the executive team in the bank that I worked for at the time was Clydesdale Bank when I became pregnant with Charlotte. And because I was senior 20 years ago, women weren't given flexibility. They weren't given the opportunity to make choices that I was able to ask for. And so, for example, I worked for a bank that never had any executive work part time. When I went off on maternity leave, I was the CIO at the time, and the bank was having a lot of challenges. So I worked to, a few days before I had my daughter. And then after I had my daughter, the chief executive of the bank came out to see me to see he was said to me he was coming out to see how I was, but actually truthfully he was coming out to see how quickly I was going to come back to work. But that was fine. And I said to him, I just asked him, I said, well, my daughter's 12 weeks old, so I'm happy to come back to work, but I only want to come back to work 3 days a week. And he said to me, that's fine. And that was the first time that National Australia Bank had a executive that worked part time in the UK, and I was the CIO at the time. And it was brilliant because it was something that didn't think would I didn't think would work. Working 3 days a week, running at the time, I had many thousands of people working for me and a lot of responsibility, but I made it work, and I made it work because I had a lot of very supportive colleagues and I had a very supportive family that enabled me to do it. And the key thing for me was I asked for it. And now it's very normal for people to work part time, and it's very normal for people to work flexibly, and it can work.
So the moral of this story, ladies, is ask for it. So I took away a few things from what Debbie just said. Ask for it, marry right, right? Ensure you have the right husband, and just make sure your boss is able to understand and agree with what you say.
Yeah,
So
exactly,
three
exactly.
key learnings. But in the word impossible, it's really I am possible.
Yeah,
And there's a lot around what we think. And many women that I work with also suffer from a lot of imposter
yeah.
syndrome. I'm not good enough. And like you just said, he was okay, but I wasn't sure I'll be able to make it work, but I'm going to do it 3 days. And we hear this generation after generation. What is it that we can do to believe that, as L'Oreal says, I'm worth it?
Well, look, I think what you've got to do is have a personal resilience to force yourself into situations that you may not think that you're going to be successful in, and be able to accept that there will be things you do that don't work well. I mean, even people say to me now, oh, when you speak you're confident, you but that doesn't mean that internally sometimes I don't feel, is that good enough, have I made mistakes? I think what you do is you learn how to present an external um, layer of presentation that you then work out how you fill in at the how you live up to, even in your own mind. So there's occasions where I've spent a lot of time thinking, oh, I'm not sure if that's going to work. But I force myself into the situation, and then subsequently, I become more confident. And so it is about a personal resilience, and it is about testing and learning and accepting that sometimes it won't go well, but you have to be able to leave that behind. You have to be able to say, I tried, and sometimes it's not worked out, but that's fine, and I'll move on to the next opportunity. And for me, failure is not trying. Failure is not trying, and as long as you're confident that you're pushing yourself and constantly trying to do better and more, then that's success, and your results will follow. My belief is your results will follow.
Well said. And, there's a quote which I've heard, which is success is not final and failure is not fatal, but it's the
Exactly.
courage to keep going is really what is important. So, moving on further, I think, since we have a lot of Asian women logging in today, I'm going to touch upon a little bit of
Yep.
intersectionality. And for me personally, working in the UK and as a part of investment banking, I remember I just moved from New York to London, and I was in Canary Wharf, and I go for a MD meeting, which is at 7:30 a.m. I'm not a morning person, so I'm barely dragging myself into the conference room. And I look around, and it's a bunch of white males, 45 and above, wearing black, gray, or blue, or maybe dark blue suits, and I'm in my black and red jumper. And I walk in, and there was this feeling of almost intimidation. And they looked at me like, "What the hell are you doing here?" And I looked at them saying, "I'm in the wrong room." But
Mhm.
anyway, I was in the right room, and unfortunately, I had to work with them. But there was this whole feeling of not just a woman, but being a brown woman for
Mm.
me. For me, the color was very, very evident.
Yep.
Um, and I think many women out here are global leaders, and they aspire to work globally, which is, going to mesh over cultures. Any guidance you would have for women in Asia?
So look, it's not the same. But what I would say to you is, when I first became someone who worked regularly in the city. For those of you who are not from the UK, I'm from Scotland, and I sound different, and I certainly looked a lot different to a lot of the men in Canary Wharf as well. So it's not the same, but I often also felt that I didn't fit in, and a lot of the banking community in the UK, they are educated in London at two or three of the universities. They all not just look the same, but they sound the same, and I didn't look like them either, and I certainly don't sound like them either. So I can relate a little. So I think it comes back to your confidence and your personal resilience again. That I do think the world is much more accepting now of differences. But if you allow how you feel to make you less confident and less sure that you belong, then I think people treat you differently. I think you've got to accept that you are worthy of being there, because and normally you're not just as good. My experience would be, as a female and as a brown woman and as someone who's came from an underrepresented community, you're probably not as good as those people. You're probably much better, because you've had to fight so much harder. So I would enter the room remembering that your seat is at the table because you've earned it, and you're probably one of the smartest in the room. You've probably got way more experience and confidence than most of the people in the room. And I would say, think about it as an advantage to stand out and be remembered, not for the way that you look or your differences, but because you've got there, and for the confidence that you'll display when you're there. And I'd also say, getting in your mind some role models who you have watched in that environment and learn from them. I actually, one of a number of years ago, I met Ginny, right, and in London, and I was at a dinner, and she was one of the only there was three females in the room. There was Ginny, there was myself, there was another lady, and I watched how confident she was in the room, and the space that she made sure she had, and the fact that a lot of women feel very pressured to make a very quick contribution. And one of the things that I noticed very much about Ginny is she waited calmly. She took her time and she filled the space. And I remember watching, thinking, well, that's really interesting, and it stayed with me. So watch and learn from other people that you admire in that situation, and I would just say draw inner confidence.
Thank you for sharing that. So tell us about, we all learn from successes and maybe a little more from failures. So tell us about a toughest situation in your mind that you've handled, which has been a great learning experience for you.
Yeah, so I mean, I've got a number. One I'll talk about is the job that I had before the current role I'm in. I was the chief executive of TSB, and TSB, for some of you, particularly in the Middle East, you may not know, but it was a bank in the UK that had suffered what was described in the UK as the biggest IT meltdown in UK banking. I mean, the organisation had gone through an incredibly difficult time. Customers couldn't transact normally for weeks. And it was really public. I mean, it was the front page of all of the newspapers, and the government had got involved. There was several really difficult hearings at Parliament, and a lot of people had said to me, "You want to take on the chief executive of that bank? You must be mad." But I remember when I first joined, the biggest difficulty I faced was that everyone had really lost confidence. There was many very senior people who were very experienced, had really, they hadn't been sleeping, they had been working 24 by 7, and they just felt that they couldn't see the way out of the doom loop. And the biggest problem I had was to restore confidence. But at the same time, I had so much pressure externally from, when are you going to fix this? What are you going to do? So it was, how do you sort of galvanize people, make them feel calm, but make them feel confident about the future, when bluntly, I felt I was going in there as a new chief executive, lots of really challenging issues. And, internally, I didn't feel confident, but I needed to make people believe that everything was going to be fine, and it was going to be good. So, the first thing I would say is I spent a long time listening and just connecting with people and understanding their personal experience. One of the things that I think is really underrated in business is connecting on a personal and an individual level, just to understand how difficult it's been for individuals on their own personal journey. And the other thing I learned very, very quickly is you need a really good team. So I went very, very quickly about recruiting the best people I could in the industry, and I had to convince them to come and join. Actually, Suresh was one of the first people I recruited, and it was about me selling the journey for him, and convincing him that he was going to be part of a turnaround story, and really trying to galvanize people into believing that we could come together and do something quite unique and special. And, I was really fortunate that I got a number of great people in UK banking to join me, and we worked with partners. IBM was a big part of that journey, along with other partners. And it was about making people believe again that you could achieve things and have fun.
Oh, fabulous. And kudos to you
Thank you.
because, I always have my timing right. So I went into investment banking 2 years prior to the crisis
Oh, wow.
and then saw the whole meltdown. And then, there were days where when you went through immigration, you don't want to say you work for a bank because they probably won't let you back into London.
Yeah.
So I completely understand. Um, Moving on from here, I felt that at least when I was kind of transcending my career journey, some sponsors and mentors have had a key role to play. So, you've beautifully articulated about the support you got from your husband and your manager or CEO at that point of time. Excuse me. But would you like to talk about any mentors or any importance of mentors that the team here can leverage
Yeah.
from?
So when I was in Clydesdale and Yorkshire Bank, there was a lady called Lynn Peacock who was the chief executive, and actually, I reflect, she was probably one of the first female chief executive of a bank, and she was very understated and didn't actually get a lot of profile, and I subsequently believe she should have had way more profile. She was very she's been an excellent, at the time, sponsor to me, and she's subsequently become a great mentor, and I'm still in touch with her. And the thing that's been really amazing about Lynn is she's very supportive to me, but she tells me the truth. And she tells me things in a very nice way, but very directly when I'm not doing things well enough, or I've made mistakes, or I need to do things differently. So she's got a really nice, considered way, and of pushing me, but telling me the truth. Because one of the things, and a lot of the senior women in the room will appreciate this, the more senior you become, the nicer people get to you. Get to, they say nice things to you, like, "Oh, that was great," or "That was brilliant," and they're not very confident to say, "Well, actually," so one of the things I'd say is you need mentors that will tell you the truth, and you need mentors that are prepared to be honest even when it's difficult, to sometimes tell you things that maybe are hard to hear. And she's consistently done that, not just in Clydesdale, but she's continued to mentor me through TSB, and I'm still in touch with her even today in Nationwide.
And so, how do people go about finding mentors?
So I think that's a very personal connection, and my view is that you have to know yourself. So what are you good at, and you have to have a very high level uh, view of your own positive and negatives. And the thing I'd also say is, mentoring for me is not just about telling you the things you need to hear. It's also about coaching, giving confidence, and bringing out the good things. So you need, my view is, you need 3 or 4 different people that you trust to be truthful and to be honest with you, but also people that you can draw strength and sometimes give you that boost. Sometimes when things aren't going well, it's really powerful for someone just to say, actually, what you did last week, or that presentation, or that decision you made was a good one. So I'd say, get people who you trust, and get people in your own little boardroom of advice givers that you see value in. And for women, sometimes it's helpful to have women, but I'd also say, open your mind to a range. And I know there's a number of men listening to this conversation. I'd also say it's really important to have a range of different views, and particularly a range of different experiences that you think will add something to you.
Perfect. So, as working women, very often we suffer from mama guilt. So, I'm going to delve into the moments that you've had the mama guilt.
Oh yeah. So I still do. So I've got one coming up. So my daughter's 21, and her 21st birthday falls on my board day again in November, and I'm just trying to negotiate the right way to break the news to her, actually. So it never leaves you, right? And I'm very proud of the way that my daughter's grown up. I felt when she was younger, it was more difficult because th- when your children are younger, and maybe they're ill, or there's something happening at school, and you're traveling a lot, there are occasions where, I'm sure you've all had this, if there's one day that you think this is a big day for her, I really hope something doesn't crop up that day. It's important. You can almost guarantee it's like her 21st. It sort of always does. So, for the first sort of 7 or 8 years of my daughter's life, I used to tell her it was her birthday on a day when it wasn't necessarily it was her birthday. I used to say, "It's your birthday today," and it was maybe the next day. She didn't know. Now she does know. And look, I think you need the support of a network round about you that can help. And I just think you have to get used to the fact that there's trade-offs. I manage my guilt by thinking that I've provided for her opportunities in education, in getting to see things, on going on holidays, and enriching her with opportunities that I didn't have when I was younger, because my parents weren't able to provide those opportunities. So you have to be comfortable with the trade-off. And again, that's a very personal set of trade-offs. For me, maybe not being there at one of her concerts was a trade-off that I felt was worth making because I was able to provide opportunities for her that I got comfortable with. But look, it never goes away. And I'd also say that she's grown up to be much more independent than some of my, well, some of the other friends and family I've got have maybe provided different parenting, and I feel very happy now when she's 21. She's very confident, she's very independent, she understands the importance of education, of achieving what's important to her. So I feel that for me, it's worked out okay, and she provides me a lot of feedback, I would tell you, right? So if you ever want some really honest feedback, let me tell you, if you've got a 21-year-old daughter, you get it in spades. I get fashion advice, I get all sorts, right? And I get a lot of insight from her that yeah, I could, some of it I can do without now, actually.
Thank you for sharing those insights. So, I have a daughter and a son, 24 and 20 now. And I remember when my daughter was younger and she went to her play school, she thought all mamas go to work. So she came back and said, one day she'd made a discovery and she came back and said, so and so's mama doesn't go to work. And so there are mamas who don't go to work, as if that was the aberration for her. But yeah, I know how that feels. I have a 24-year-old who, by the way, they change. So till about 5 years back, my wardrobe was very like old and it's for,
Oh, now she wants to borrow all
yeah,
your
yeah.
clothes. Well, I'll tell you. So
And be
my
careful when
yeah,
you
no, no,
lend
no,
your
no. It's
wardrobe.
happened already. So my daughter worked in London. So I've my family home's in Scotland, and I travel normally on a Monday or a Tuesday down to London, and I've got a flat down in London with all my work clothes. So my daughter has been doing an internship, and she arrived, and she's been going to her internship all summer wearing most of my clothes. And then, her colleagues who are in terms of saying, for an intern, you're very well dressed, right? And she's appearing on LinkedIn in photographs now in outfits that are mine, and I can't wear some of my clothes now because she's on LinkedIn in them. So yeah, that has happened to me.
One way to discourage them is pass the dry cleaning bill to them. That might just pace it down a bit. But yeah. No, I've had another funny situation. So I remember, I was traveling. I was always a traveling mom, and for a period of 6 months, when I started working for RBS, I was stationed in one place. And after a few months, my son was like, "When are you traveling? This is too stressful to have you come home every evening.
Yeah.
I'm not used to it." So yeah, I think it's just worked their way around, and they're really wicked after a point of time.
Yeah.
And the emotional blackmails and all of that, I'm sure you've gone through as well. So.
Look, absolutely. And learning to sort of put those things in a box is really important, right? Because they become overwhelming. And that's why I think people's journeys are personal. So for some people, that the decisions that I feel happy with maybe aren't right. What's most important is that you get happy, that your decisions work for you. And I'd be really searching on that, because it's great to hear other people's experiences, but if you're not happy with them and you don't emotionally feel good about them, my personal view is you're not good at work then, because it impacts the decisions that you make and how confident. I mean, balance is the one thing I'd say to everybody. The connection between your personal life and your business life, they're too great. And if you can't get those to work well, I feel you're not good at home or you're not good at work. The whole thing needs to connect. And you've got to keep searching for how you make that work and how that balance is achieved, because then you do a great job both in your personal life and your business life. If you're not happy, you have to keep searching to get that equilibrium.
Great. So apart from my day job, as Usha was saying, I write a bit. So one of my first releases was a book called Can I Have It All?
Hmm.
And that was on back of a controversial statement made, and it was purposely put as a question mark, the title
Yeah.
of the book. And it's yet a question mark, even the book has sold multiple times.
Yeah.
And so, can women have it all? I don't know if men can have it all. There's this whole debate about more focused on women and the questions women get asked around career and family and how do you balance it. And is far much more. I mean, my husband doesn't get asked that question, but I do many times.
Mm.
And as an entrepreneur, so till I was a banker, I hadn't experienced the other side of the big bad world of PE and VC. Now
Mm.
that I'm an entrepreneur, I mean, I hope no private equity or venture capitalists are dialing in, but I have to confess, very often when I go for a pitch or I'm doing a round, the question I get asked is, why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
Why do you hustle? You made your money, your husband's doing well. Why don't you chill a bit? You're the wrong gender, you're the wrong age, right? So, in the context of that, can I have it all? I mean, there are women like you who are role models. There's some of us yet trying to pursue the path. But is that really a question for women? And if it is, what does that all mean for you? How can we have it all? Is there a utopia? Since it's a yet a question mark in my book, I thought I'll ask you as well.
So I think you can have it all, but the all is about what you define as balance for you. And I think this notion that, I mean, I see not just women. I see some men do this. Oh, I have to have the car, the boat, the da, 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 da." So I think you get to a point in your life where you realize there's a certain level of success which provides you with a lifestyle that allows you to provide things like good education for your children, good health care. But then you get past that point, and I think all is about happiness, and happiness is about purpose and achievement. And for people, there's different versions of that. For me, I really enjoy working because it gives me purpose, and I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy the people that I work with. And Nationwide is an example of an organization that I believe its purpose is about not just providing financial services, it's about doing it for the good of society. And I've got to a point in my career where I'm able to understand that it's really important for me to be delivering to an organization that I think's got a purpose that I can commit to and I feel good about. And I don't, I show up every day because I want to make a difference and I enjoy what I do. And it's become less, the more success you get financially, the less it's just about a paycheck. But I absolutely, by the way, um, understand for a lot of people there is a really important point where you want to get to you in your life where you feel confident and secure, and you make different choices through that. So I do think you can have it all, but you have to challenge yourself on what the definition of all is for you. And I think as you mature, it becomes less important to, I don't know, buy a new handbag. It becomes much more important to feel confident that your children are well educated, you're secure, that you can provide good health care, you can look after your parents, you can feel good about showing up, to do the right things, to give back to society. And that for me is my all now. And if it means that, I choose very carefully the people I work with and what I do, then that to me is a very important all.
Perfect. I'm going to actually come to you, Nicola, because we have you in the room as well. What does all mean for you? So I'm going to pass.
When you asked the question, I was very surprised when Debbie answered, because my mind immediately went to that depends on how you define all. And so for me, it's about thinking through what are the things that you get your energy from, how do you fit those into your life? And it might be family. For me, it's exercise as well. And
Yep.
Finding a way to put all of that together in a way that makes sense for you. And I think, all of you are leaders at this level. You're going to work hard. You're going to do long hours. It's about how do you put boundaries around that so that everything else can stay in balance. And I say to my team, there are two things that stress me in my life. One is something going wrong with my kids. And the other is not being able to get enough exercise. Everything else I can take in my stride. And so if I can get those things right, then all for me is entirely possible. And I think then it's about being really attuned to when something's out of balance, just, every day, do I want to do this? Do I want to come here? Do I want to do this job? Or whatever else in life it might be. And just being really well attuned to that. And if the answer's no, just change it. So that's how I manage, and it waxes and wanes. Sometimes it's in balance, but I'm very, very fine tuned now to know this is out of balance for me. I need to do something about it fast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. One of the things when you talked about balance just spiked in my head, and I've spoken about this in Can I Have It All, is just wellness.
Mm.
And as women, maybe I'm probably stereotyping here a bit, but we're so much into giving and taking care. And yes, I know what makes me happy, but what makes me happy is to give somebody something. And I remember, from my personal experience, I was in London then. I was working myself completely silly and bad hours, bad eating habits, felt really unwell. I had my lungs collapsed. I was all of 38 and I was in the hospital for 3 months and I finally made it out of the hospital. But one of the things I learned from that incident is smoke less, drink less, sadly, have breakfast and take care of yourself. And it's like, in the plane when the message is when if something there's turbulence and the mask comes down, put your mask first. But we as women actually don't tend to take enough care. So the exercise bit was very important. Any thoughts from you?
So look, I think that the first thing is, to pick up Nicola's point, I think you've got to be very tuned in to how you are feeling, and not prioritize everyone ahead of yourself, because you're never going to be able to do a great job as being a parent, being a colleague at work, being a leader. And I think, the other thing I'd say is, for those of you who are in leadership positions, you will know this. People look at your wellness and they take a lot of confidence or otherwise from it. So don't think that you working yourself and sort of showing up, in a way that doesn't exude confidence is good for your organization, or is good for your children, or is good for your relationships. You got to look after yourself, and you got to be able to call it. It's the same when something's challenging at work, and if you're the chief executive and you're sort of running around with your hair on fire, and people, they're disturbed by that. What they want is a calm, confident leader who will take the time to prioritize what's right for them. So I would say that you're not just doing yourself a favor, you're doing your organization, you're doing your family, and you're doing everybody else a favor. So I'm quite good at always making sure that I appear like it's good, even if I have to go home and, I don't know, have some kind of meltdown privately or whatever, right? And don't think that people don't do it, because they do, right? But I'm quite disciplined, and what I find that forces me to do is think really carefully. If I can't confidently present myself, it's a really good check for me to go, hang on a minute, do I need to take time out? Do I need to go and have a chat with a mentor? Do I need to think about what's going wrong? So I'd say, be really thoughtful about that, because it's not only you're doing damage to, you're doing damage to the people around you as well.
Great. So one last question from me, and then we'll take a couple of them from online and a couple of them in the audience. I'm going to do a rapid fire. It wasn't on the
Okay.
agenda. So I hope I don't get fired for doing this.
I don't know.
Anyway, Can I Have It All is actually based on 7 C's. So I'm going to just ask you 7C, or maybe 1/8 one, and anything top of your mind.
Okay.
Yeah, so here we go. Clarity.
In what context?
Anything. What do you associate with clarity?
Oh, clarity. Okay, what I insult with, absolutely. It's about knowing yourself better than anything else.
Perfect. Well done. Conviction.
Oh, having a purpose, knowing where you're going.
Fabulous. Choices.
Instinct. You have to go with your instinct in most occasions.
I love that. Yeah. Courage.
Ooh, for me, courage is everything.
Mm.
Not having the courage to try is a disaster. You must have the courage to try.
Everything every day.
Yeah.
Okay. Connect.
Very, very important. I take my strength from people, so connections are really important, and family is probably number one.
Collaboration.
It's the way to get stuff done, right? It's absolutely the way to get stuff done every day.
Well, 10 out of 10. You've done really well. And the last one. So what's your legacy?
Oh, so look, I hope that, well, I really hope that in the UK, people can see an organization like Nationwide that can deliver financial services with purpose. I really believe that Nationwide is different from the other banks because it's a member-owned organization. And I think the problem I have is, as great as Nationwide, people don't understand the power of a member-owned organization. So I want to leave a legacy where people talk about Nationwide as an organization that does banking that's fairer and it's more rewarding for the good of society. That purpose is really meaning for me, and I want people to really believe that I've brought it to life. Thank you.
We wish Debbie all the best. So we're going to open up for some questions. Let's go online first. In the chat, if people who've logged in, if you want to have, if you have questions for Debbie, then do put it in the chat and they'll be picked up in the room.
Thank you so much, Anu. Thank you, Debbie. We are getting some amazing response, feedback, comments from our live stream viewers. So I'm just going to read out some questions that have come in. So the first one is, most women shy away from talking about their achievements as compared to men. What's some of the good ways to do some constructive bragging?
Oh, that's a great question. Right. Well, my tip is it's really good to get other people to brag on your behalf. Look, um, I think humility is really important, right? I think when you're a leader, if you don't stay humble and you don't stay grounded, and the way I do that is because if ever I try to brag, my daughter's the first one to bring me right back down to earth. So there's a big difference between your inner confidence and externally bragging. So I'm not sure I'm a big bragger, but having the confidence to push yourself forward into those situations, I think, is what people need to really concentrate on.
Thank you. I'll just take one and then pass it to the room. We often say empathy is a skill of the future. This creates a huge opportunity for inclusion of women in C-suite, but we don't see that happening quite often. What would you suggest for women as well as male allies do to make this happen?
Oh, look, I think that's a great question. I think you've got to really understand other people's journeys and be prepared to inquire and listen. I think so many people make assumptions. It's really interesting to me now when I'm in a chief executive position, sort of 35-year, people make lots of assumptions about how I got to where I got to in my journey. And some of it I find really interesting because they haven't inquired or understood about my personal journey. So I'd say be educated, be inquisitive, and listen.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
So given the time, we'll take a couple in the room, and then I guess she's got other meetings.
So it was so insightful, listening to you. My question to you has two parts. You talked about sponsors and mentors, but who's your role model? Is it a male or a woman? That was one. The other is that you have achieved so much, but what do you aspire to be in the next 3 years?
All right. Okay. Well, I'll take the second one because that's easy. A good chief executive of Nationwide Building Society.
Great.
And really, it's that simple. So one of the questions I'm always asked is, oh, how did you develop this plan to become a chief executive? The truth is, I always really thought about doing a great job in the one I'm currently in. And I know that sounds like I'm not ambitious. I've always been hugely ambitious, but I found it really useful to imagine over a 3 year. I always do 3 year plans, right? 3 year strategies, 3 year plans. And my strategy is always take a 3 year plan and do it in two. Right. So, that's all. It's really simple. And it's what happened in TSB. And, I hope it's what's going to happen nationwide. So that's easy. I've got a range of different role models for different reasons. And, one of the persons that always comes to mind is Lynn Peacock, who's a lady who I've talked about earlier. She's just fantastic and really calm. And actually, just now, I'm really lucky. The chairman of Nationwide is quite a role model to me because he's a massively well-connected person in the city, but another very calm voice of reason and always incredibly well-connected into what's happening and got a real appetite for knowledge. So, I've got a range of different role models.
Thank you.
So, hi, Debbie. Thanks for your thoughts. They were really insightful. So, I just want to ask, like you spoke about nationwide. So, how does nationwide foster an inclusive and diverse work culture? And what steps are being taken at various organization level to promote this diversity?
So it's a really good question, and I'd start by saying we're not doing enough. So we've got a whole range of networks, whether it's for women, for people from different backgrounds. We've got a social inclusion one. We've got a one that's about ethnic diversity. So we've got a range of things. We're also doing a lot of work on how we recruit people, and we're also doing a lot of inquiry into why do people leave. Because this is really interesting, right? So we're surveying not just people who stay and are happy, we're surveying people about why they've chosen to leave. And there's a range of things going on. So we are trying to make a level of different interventions. But the thing that is most interesting to me is there's often people who believe that their situation is quite isolated within Nationwide, and we're doing a lot to try and connect people to get them support for what they think is important and what's troubling them. So an example, we've connected a number of people who have got very difficult domestic situations just now, and it's very confidential to them, but it's just been really interesting. And the power and the benefit that they have taken and the confidence to not just stay with Nationwide, but to maybe push themselves onto the next level from that peer group support has had a really big difference. So it's a range of things, but we're not nearly as good as encouraging women in STEM and in technology, and it's an area that Suresh has got a lot to do in.
Yeah, thank you. I hope it works out.
Thank you. Yeah.
You talked about joining the bank and turning it around when everybody, including said, why are you doing this? So my question is, why did you decide to join that bank? What gave you confidence that you could turn it around when there were too many naysayers around you?
So, well, it's so I'll try and make this quick. I mean, actually, I understood quite a lot about what had gone wrong. I'd had the chance to look at the organisation through the previous bank I worked with. We'd looked at potentially acquiring the bank, and I understood quite a lot about it. And because I had a lot of previous experience in execution on technology, I felt very confident. When technology goes wrong, it's not normally about the technology, it's about people, it's about leadership, and it's about organization. And I felt that I recognized that it was about the team, the organization, and I believed that it was a problem that was very fixable. So what gave me the confidence? Actually, a lot of people I trusted said to me, "You'd be good at that job." When the job advert went out, I think probably in the first 3 days, I had about 5 or 6 different people say to me, "That's a job for you." So I just sort of took a deep breath and dived in. And then Suresh joined and helped me.
She's just given you the entire DI agenda, and everything has to be sorted within the next 6 months.
Yeah. I've got to go.
Okay,
I've got to
okay.
go.
But no, so well, in that case, we'll let you meet Debbie and ask the question when you can. But thank you, Debbie, for your time. I think the price of greatness is responsibility and role modeling. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot you've done for us as a women community, and I'm sure you'll continue to inspire many. But thank you. It's
Well,
been a
thank you
pleasure
to you. It's
hosting
been
you.
wonderful to meet you as well.
Thank
Thank you
you.
to everyone.